The images coming out of Gaza are horrific and heartbreaking. So it's natural to ask if the Muslim world might unite militarily to help the Palestinians. After all, solidarity with Palestine is a powerful force across the Islamic world. But could that translate into military action? Would the Islamic world actually fight together to defend Palestine? You know me, I never shy away from a complex question. Let's dive in. The idea of the whole Muslim world uniting militarily to fight Israel isn't new. It's been a trope of many Cold War-era spy movies. But in real life, it hasn't happened yet and probably won't for a few reasons. First off, we need to understand that the Muslim world isn't a monolith. It's deeply divided. Now, sure, there's a lot of solidarity with Palestine, especially in Gaza, but actually getting all these countries to work together is a different story altogether. We're talking about dozens of countries with different interests, histories, and relationships with the West. The biggest division is between Sunni and Shia states, which breaks down roughly into a Saudi LED Sunni bloc and an Iranian Shia bloc. Within each of those groups, there are further divisions. Some countries want closer ties with the US and Europe. Others want to chart their own independent path, and some are happy being aligned with China and Russia. All of these divisions make it hard for the Islamic world to present a united front, let alone form a fighting force. Take Saudi Arabia, for example. They've chosen to normalize relations with Israel. In their view, it's in their national interest. The same goes for the UAE, Egypt, and Jordan. You can argue about whether it's smart or not, but it's a reality that limits how much these countries could work together on a joint military operation. But let's assume that the Saudis and other Sunni monarchies were not interested in normalizing ties with Israel. Even then, the chances of a united Islamic military force remain slim. Why? Because the Islamic world isn't just divided politically, it's also divided militarily. If we look at the raw numbers, countries like Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, and some of the Gulf states do have sizable militaries. But would that matter if they were to join forces? Not really. Because despite their size, most of these militaries aren't coordinated. They don't train together, share intelligence, or have compatible equipment. In fact, some of these countries see each other as rivals. Take Turkey and Iran, for example. Their relationship is complicated and competitive. Or consider the long-running feud between the Shaheeds of Iran and the Houthis in Yemen. Can you imagine them fighting side by side? Yeah, didn't think so. There is one major wild card here, though, and that's Pakistan. They have nuclear weapons and a history of supporting various militant groups. But again, even if they wanted to, Pakistan doesn't have the capability to project power outside of their region, let alone wage war on multiple fronts. Plus, historically, Pakistan has avoided getting sucked into Middle Eastern conflicts. Remember the 1973 Arab-Israeli War? Egypt and Syria invited the Pakistani army to participate. They said no thanks. The same goes for the 1982 Lebanon War. So even with nukes, Pakistan's role is limited. But what about Turkey? After all, they've emerged as a major player in the Middle East in recent years. Well, Turkey has some cards up its sleeve. They've spent billions on their military and now boast some advanced weapon systems, including drones that have been used effectively in Libya and Syria. Turkey also has a large, well-trained army, the second largest in NATO after Russia's. And lastly, they control the Bosporus Strait, a critical waterway for oil shipments. What does all of this mean? That Turkey could play a big role in any conflict with Israel? Not necessarily. Yes, they have the military hardware, but can they use it without NATO's permission? Remember, Turkey is still a member and controlling the Bosporus wouldn't automatically give them an edge. Israel has plenty of naval assets in the region, and the U.S. Navy is always nearby. In short, a Turkish-led Islamic coalition doesn't seem realistic either. Okay, but what if you combined the militaries of, say, Iran, Iraq, Hezbollah, Hamas, and some of the Gulf states? Well, then you'd be looking at around 500,000 active soldiers. Does that change things? Not really, because despite their size, this coalition would still have major problems. For starters, it wouldn't have air superiority. The Israeli Air Force is one of the most technologically advanced in the world. They can strike targets deep inside Iran and Syria. As for the ground war, Israel has fought insurgencies before and they've learned some tough lessons. What does that mean? It means that this hypothetical Islamic army would face some serious challenges in terms of logistics, communication, and strategy. Basically, they'd be up against an experienced opponent who's prepared for unconventional warfare. But the biggest obstacle for any Islamic military coalition isn't Israel. It's actually the international community. You think the U.S. would stand by and watch while a coalition of Muslim countries attacks a key ally? Yeah, they'd probably get involved, which means starting World War III. None of these countries want to risk that. So far, the Islamic world has shown symbolic unity on Palestine, things like summits, UN resolutions, and aid pledges. But when it comes to sending their own people into a very dangerous fight, the record is clear. It's hard to imagine that changing anytime soon. Sure, groups like Hezbollah and Hamas are committed to armed struggle. Iran's Revolutionary Guard is active in the region, and the Houthis keep launching missiles. But none of those actors represent the entire Islamic world. They're just a small part of it. So yes, we'll continue seeing missile attacks and drone strikes. But will the Muslim world unite militarily? Very unlikely. There's just too much division within the Islamic world, too much dependence on the West, and too high a price to pay. Instead, we'll probably see more symbolic gestures, maybe some humanitarian aid and perhaps some missile strikes. But a full-blown military coalition, I just don't see it happening. Look, I know this isn't the answer anyone wants to hear. I wish I could tell you that justice was going to come with bombs and bullets, but that's just not how it works. This situation is heartbreaking and frustrating, but we have to be realistic about what could actually happen. A massive Islamic military coalition isn't one of those things. Now, if you want to learn more about the current conflict, I recommend checking out a video we did on the history of Israeli occupation. It covers everything from the 1967 war to the present day. Thanks for watching.